the average Nigerian person, man or woman, had been so dehumanized by the system.
That's a very strong word.
Consciously by those in the political leadership system.
Right.
And one of the tools they've used is religion.
Is religion an end, or is it a means to an end? I think that's what the big question is.
First of all, when people go to these faith-based organizations, we should understand that there is certain unacknowledged desperation within them. And you know, when someone is desperate, someone is hungry, and you keep dangling food,
I know,
and you did not give the person will keep happy, will keep being desperate for the food.
Religion in itself is pretty neutral, but the way, that it has been practiced over the years, I think is where the challenge is.
Majority of what we practice doesn't have substance, provable substance. Have you met a dead person that woke up? Have you met someone that was blind once that you knew, not that you heard, that now sees? And everybody I've asked this, I have not seen someone that has actually met somebody that they knew. We have always heard of it.
Some people are already seeing it differently. That is not really the religious leaders. Maybe politicians have a way. Because once you bring in religion, people forget their economic hardship. They forget insecurity. They forget every other thing like the weak institutions that we have there.
100%.
So why do we blame the pastors?
This is what is making religion look ugly, to the world, and, who are watching Nigeria and saying, there's so much of it. Where is the change that is supposed to come of it?
It's not wrong. Nigerians need to know that it's not wrong to ask questions. All the developments we have today in the world came to be because somebody asked questions.
I remember growing up, my father used to challenge the pastors. On a Sunday service, he raises his hand to say, Pastor, I have a question on that particular thing. Why was it so? And some of those things provoked them.
Let's stop mitigating, let's stop criminalizing, demonizing people who ask questions.
So is the problem the fact that we're asking the questions maybe to people who can't answer the questions? Is that what the problem is? Because if you're asking questions, you can be asking questions of the religious leaders who are studying the material. But are we looking at the material and asking our questions to the material to get answers from the material, and not necessarily the leaders who are the custodians of the material, because we've all agreed that they are fallible and they're just men.
So going back into that book itself, some of our religious leaders are even using that book to actually blackmail people.
When can we say enough is enough, or let's apply reasonableness to how we follow the religion?
Nigeria is often described as one of the most religious nations on earth, with over 24,000 worship centers across the country.
Some estimate that every street in Nigeria has either a church, a mosque, or a combination of both, and that makes the numbers hard to pin down.
But many Nigerians are beginning to ask a difficult question. If we pray this much, why does progress still feel so slow?
Today on Naija Now, we explore the relationship between faith, power, and progress, and whether religion is actually changing Nigeria's future for better or for worse. Well, as always, we have that formidable team. And I think, you guys have heard this over and over again, that in Nigeria, our lives back there, even the ones here, it's all woven around a religion, and almost every community has a church, a mosque, and sometimes shrines and all that. But do we think that this has helped us advance the cause of prosperity in Nigeria, the cause of good governance, the cause of morality in Nigeria? I'd like to get your reaction. I'll start with you, Soji. What do you think this leaves us?
I think with religion, we've achieved quite the opposite of all those things that you mentioned. Prosperity, just for some scanty few. Morality, we can't see that. Every aspect of human endeavor seems to have been defiled because of religion or the way we practice the religion. Right. So I think we are quite experiencing the opposite of what religion should give us.
All right.
Yeah.
Toby, again, we've done a lot of crusade, and in fact, it's like you came back from one. When you came I came to the studio, I was asking myself, where could Toby had got to? Haven't made any progress, in your opinion, based on how religious our country, Nigeria, has been? Uh, any progress there, in your opinion, so far?
Yeah, yes and a no. The yes being that majority of the developments we have academically today are religiously inclined. Most of our schools, St. James and St. Joseph's, that's a religious inclination to how our education has been built. And some of the developments that we have as far as infrastructure are also religiously motivated.
Built out of
But the well, you can say some colonial religious influence,
Right.
but it's still religious. So in those sense, I'll say yes, we have developed. But to where we are right now, the kind of religion we practice, when it's been left to us, what we have turned it into, what we are trying to do with it, and where it is right now, it's a sharp decline from what it used to be, and on the very negative note.
So faith across our lifestyles back on the left
Yeah.
has influenced everything we do. In fact,
Indeed.
in every statement we bless you. And,
Bless you.
Do we actually mean these things? To what extent do you think religion has actually impacted our lives as Nigerians?
Well, I agree with both statements, that have been made earlier. However, I think I would lean more strongly to the fact that religion in itself is pretty neutral. We have the opportunity, for religion to have such a positive impact, but the way, that it has been practiced over the years, I think is where the challenge is. I, for one, for instance, found a lot of solace in religion with a lot of the broken systems, around us, where some of just the basic, infrastructure was not in place. I was getting an education and I was having to sit in a class with 300 other people, to listen to, and I was expected, to give my best. So the trauma just to my mind, I found a lot of solace in religion and in faith, but having said that, I think the one thing, just in thinking about the prepping for this, is the fact that most religions are guided by some religious book, some religious plumb line. And I think that there isn't enough individual commitment to the study of your religious books to understand what your personal obligations are to your faith.
So thank you, Madala. You've been able to set that nicely to set the foundation for this conversation. But you see, generally, religion affects everybody's life in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And recently, I've seen videos where some kids in Asia or somewhere, maybe Far East Asia or thereabout, who are in labs, trying to figure out things, scientific experiments. But yet we had some of our children who are busy in prayer houses rather than, study and experiment and be where the world is. So one would think, okay, probably if we are focusing on religious things, we should get the benefit that comes from the religious, situation. But we're seeing the opposite these days. Why is religion so central to Nigeria? Why do we just not prepare ourselves to think out of the box, or at least question this religion once in a while to make sure that we are in the right direction? I'd like to come to you, Soji. What are your thoughts around here?
Well, it's difficult to question religion in Nigeria because it's operating under a kind of blackmail system.
Right.
Every religion operates actually under that system. Probably hijacked from what it used to be by politicians, and then it had to have its own focus, its own dimension. The leaders of individual religions became entrenched in the power that religion could serve. And that power becomes a tool to blackmail people.
Right.
So if you come out and start speaking about some things, it's like you are not God. You don't understand God.
You don't understand the things of the spirit.
Yeah, the ways of God is not the ways of men. But this thing is logical.
Yeah.
Those who are developing technologically, it doesn't mean they don't believe in God.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they are not religious.
Yeah.
It just means they are doing things in ways that God himself had said, oh, go and take dominion.
Yeah.
God did not say, go and sit down and be worshiping me from morning till evening. God is saying, I have this power to do all these things, but I don't have to be doing all these things all the time. I'm giving you some of those powers. You could do those small bits. Through me, you could do those small. But we felt like, oh, God is, we blackmail. God is the one who will do those small bits for us. Hence, you just have to be stuck in the church. You have to be stuck in the mosque. You have to. So, if you come out and question some of these things, you are like an errant in the society. You are a vagrant to that religious system. So you are isolated, exorcised, you are bullied. So that's just, people find it difficult to come out and just say, this is the way we are doing this thing, and we feel it's wrong.
So Toby, do you think, or Modley, if you want to jump in, do you think we should begin to have limits to which, we follow this thing and not just end up being sheep without brains, just keep going and without questioning anything? Because we're in the West right now. We have our friends in the UK, we have some in the US, some of us here in Canada and all over the world who are outside Nigeria. They're beginning to see how religion is being handled here. Remember, we don't talk about religion in our workplaces.
Absolutely.
We don't bring it in to corporate work, so that when you're in the office, you're focusing on the office things and not bringing the sentiment. But a lot of people draw inspiration from this. And I think, like you said, broken society, broken systems. So they draw inspiration from there, sukkah from there. When can we say enough is enough, or let's apply reasonableness, to how we follow the religion thing? What do you think? Any of you can go?
Toby, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think what we call religion in Nigeria is like a cliche, an overused expression that has lost its original meaning. And by that, I mean what we used to call faith and what we call religion now are two different things, and we are failing to see that religion without works is baseless, But majority of what we practice doesn't have substance, provable substance.
But people get healed as a result.
Well, I haven't met any. I've asked people that question a lot of times.
You can't say that, Toby.
Well,
that is so isolated.
Permit me to explain.
People are being healed on TV and all these platforms.
Permit me to explain.
Are you serious?
Permit me
Not
to
all
explain.
the time.
Permit me to explain. I might be wrong, but this is national TV, so to say.
It's global TV.
But have you? I'll ask the four of you over here. It's not that I don't have faith. I still have faith. I'm a good religious follower. But have you met a dead person that woke up? I'll ask you 5 of them. Have you met someone that was blind once, that you knew, not that you heard, that now sees?
There's so many actually on the street. But
Oh, no. Have you met one? And everybody have asked this. I have not seen someone that has actually met somebody that they knew. We have always heard of it.
But how about the deaf here? I think we've seen this.
We've
But
seen
I
it.
know somebody that
healed
lost
from
their
cancer.
sight temporarily, and
I'm not talking
was prayed over
temporarily,
and
a
got it
blind person, because we hear of the blind getting to see, the lame getting to walk. I'm not saying they are not miracles. Don't get me wrong. There is miracles, but there are ways to access such powers, such spiritual efficiency, such esoteric dominance to perform such kind of things. Are we in those kind of spheres? Are we having the right discussion about that power that we are wielding?
Are you trying to say that they do some of these things to manipulate people?
Of course, that's exactly what I'm saying. If you want me to call it ABC, I will.
oh boy. So let me now.
Are you in agreement with what to be?
No, I'm not. I'm not in 100% agreement with what's Toby saying. I think Toby's mind is extremely wide on this subject.
Yeah.
And
Toby has always been like that, by the way.
and I feel like Toby has some bones to pick, around which I'm sure that he'll explain, if we can. But what I really wanted to say is that I agree with the portion where Toby is saying, that religion, appears to have become an end, like the way it's practiced. Is religion an end, or is it a means to an end? I think that's what the big question is. Because if religion is an end, then what we see as being practiced every day by majority of Nigerians is religion.
Let me shock you.
They are spending the
Let me
hours
shock
and the
you
time
with
in
this
religion.
analogy. The only reason why you practice this religion you practice, and that's for majority, I'll say 95%. I only leave out 5% because of certain permutations and plus or minus that come in. The only reason I'm leaving that out. But 95% of us are in this religion we are practicing because our parents were in it. We didn't choose it. I wasn't born into Christianity because I was only born into it. I didn't choose to be a Christian. If I was born in Afghanistan, I'll be a Muslim, shouting whatever they shout over there. If I was born in China, I'll be a Buddhist. If I was born in India, I'll be in Krishna or some.
Are you trying to say it's influenced from?
It's influenced.
Family?
It's influenced.
It starts out as being
So people
influence.
don't have, but
it
people
starts
don't have
out
the right to probably question it and interrogate it before they even.
Then
Eventually
that
you
right
do.
is taken away, like Soji said. That right is taken away the moment you start to question it. Everybody looks at you as if you're crazy, as if you're saying something out of the blues. When you start to question it, which is what we should, like I have a right to decide that, these things don't add up or these things don't look right. Or the moments I start to ask questions, it's as if they say, just throw away your brain. To be
So to that, I would say,
Okay.
to that, I would say, I had a life coach who used to say that, there's a certain religion, take off their shoes, before going into the place of worship, that generally speaking, most people, when they're going into any place of worship, leave their brains outside at the door as they go into the place of worship. And he was saying it to make a point, that's similar, to what you're saying. You need to be able to go. I believe that religion is not just about spiritual life. Religion is scientific. Religion covers all aspects of life. So you should be able, to ask questions. You should be able to do your research, which is what I was saying at the beginning, that
ask question,
if you have the
reference,
religious book, exactly,
material.
you have reference materials. I think what the challenge has
and
been,
personal experiences too.
and personal experiences, because for me personally, I found that a combination of both is how I have arrived at my convictions, even though I was born into a particular religion. So yes, your immediate culture, your immediate society brings you into a particular religion, but that does not absolve you of the responsibility for owning your faith, as a person. I find, that over time, there has been a passing of the buck of the responsibility of doing the research to the religious leaders. And so where Soji was making, Soji was making the point that, the power of religion, is then used against the people. The people are not completely innocent or complicit because they have joined by not doing their own research. So whatever is coming from the leader, they've taken as law, and then all of a sudden the leader notices it and then becomes comfortable in the fact that he can release a word and that word becomes law. It's not really going to be checked.
I mean, we've had instances on social media where certain religious leaders ask people to go and taste the grass, and that would be the best thing for them, and they all went out to the field and
like literally.
I don't know how true that was, but I mean, when I saw that, I kind of broke.
We should never we should understand the
that's an
humanity.
extreme.
That's an extreme, but there are several versions, variety
it
of
shows
those.
up. We should understand the humanity of the religious leader and understand that you're looking not so much what is coming out of his mouth, as to what it is in the books that he has studied or she has studied, and you also, should be studying and referencing to be able to produce the types of results. And then to talk about this issue of miracles, another thing that then happened is because we became complacent and allowed the religious leaders to dictate, we also then now idolize them and the system. And they took advantage of it in the sense that, okay, so the people are around, the people are always around. So if I'm going to build growth around them, I will build growth for them within our religious system. So you find a person just rising from this level of religious influence to another, and they have not thought to take that influence out into the marketplace, being coached to be able to have impact in the marketplace, which is what I was trying to say at the beginning, where if religion is not the end, but the means to an end. That means religion is where I find the power, the information, the moral compass that will then guide me to go into regular society and make an impact that should be positive.
You're already sounding like an evangelist. You want to go out in the world and preach the gospel.
Glory!
Right. So I know Soji has been waiting eagerly, but take it easy, man. Yes. Well, in the face of difficulties, we find that religion plays a very good role there for many Nigerians. It provides hope and emotional kind of resilience. But do you think that those who lead the religious groups, they're doing a good job as far as not abusing this dependence on that inspiration, that emotional, situation that they help to regulate in church? Because sometimes some people, when you go to church, they feel like all their problems have disappeared and all. Do you think they are kind of abusing this position people put them at?
I think so. I think most religious leaders do that.
So how can we check these powers that have been given to them?
First of all, when people go to these faith-based organizations, all these religious organizations, we should understand that there is certain unacknowledged desperation within them. Most of them don't admit it, but it's certain, because you find out of the millions of people attending conventions, revival, hundreds, thousands are praying about getting visas to get out of the country. I'm specific with Nigeria now. Some are praying they want to be pregnant. Some are praying they want to have.
But I mean, to get pregnant, that's an easy this thing. Just go and close the door. You have the baby.
Not for all, unfortunately.
But
Don't be. Am I speaking your mind?
No, not this time.
I mean, you don't have. You have to pray to have this.
For some people, that's straightforward.
Just close the door. Turn off the light.
For some people,
You have to turn off the lights. Actually.
You come at 3 instead of 2. Go on your point.
So it is this desperation that these religious leaders actually harped on.
Yeah.
And when someone is desperate, someone is hungry, and you keep dangling food,
I know.
and you did not give the person will keep happy, will keep being desperate for the food.
Yeah.
And apart from using that logic, there's also a special weapon that is used to actually turn these people into praise.
Yeah.
Praise as in the leaders become predators.
Soji, I didn't want to cut you, but you see, some people are already seeing it differently. That is not really the religious leaders. Maybe politicians have a way, because once you bring in religion, people forget their economic hardship. They forget insecurity. They forget every other thing, like the weak institutions that we have there. Do you think they play a role in manipulating people through the religion?
You mean the politicians?
The politicians
of
and
course,
powers
absolutely, 100%.
So why do we blame the pastors now
when
and the
you
imams
sign in-
and all
no,
these people that lead?
No, when you sign in to be a religious leader, you are actually exonerating yourselves from some things and inscribing some other things on yourself.
see.
It's like being a politician. Once you contest an election, you are signing away your personal life and you are taking yourself into a public sphere. So I can abuse you because I elect you. But if it's personal, I may not abuse you publicly.
Right.
You understand? That is the same thing with religious leaders. Once you become a religious leader, you have removed some aspect of your personal life. You have become a public because you've inscribed some things. You've told yourself and the world that you are following certain tenets and you are living by the dictates of those tenets. That is their position. And when you now bring politics into the church, or you use politicians as some of the manipulative tools, to help to redirect the mentality of your congregation, then there is trouble, big trouble.
So religion and politics should be separate.
I was coming to you on that, because clearly there's an intersection there. You find that we have more people who are religious in a Nigerian country context here than people who are secular, like who don't belong to either.
Which is the point that I was trying. Which is the point
let me
I was
land
trying
on
to
my
say.
point.
Okay,
What I'm trying to say is, because we have more people in these centers, religious centers, won't we expect naturally that when you come to the leaders of those religious groups, they should be able to influence politics, decisions, policies, and the things that government do? But No, we have the opposite, right? Why that? Why so?
I think it's, again, a misunderstanding of what religion is. Is it the end? Gathering the people and keeping the people, to yourself with a particular mentality? Or is it a means to an end? Let's use the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, as an example, the Reverend Jesse Jackson of the US.
Yeah.
Reverend Jesse Jackson was a religious leader.
Yeah.
For the most part. He was a religious
And
leader.
Martin Luther King.
Martin
I was going
Luther
to say
King
that,
was a
yeah.
reli- was a-
They
was
use
a-
religious platforms to bring about change, but we don't seem to be seeing that these days.
That's exactly where I'm going with this, that we are getting to a point where this is what is making religion look ugly, to the world, and, who are watching Nigeria and saying, there's so much of it. Where is the change that is supposed to come of it? Right? The religious leaders, that we've just spoken about, Reverend Jesse Jackson or Martin Luther King, were people who they preached the message, but they also went out and they acted the message. Yeah. And in one of the instances died, for the message. But the message was not about religion as an end. The message was about taking your faith and going out to implement change in the world around you to align with the positives of that message. And I think that's where we need to evolve into. As I consider myself a watcher of the religion, the religious scene.
We need
in
to
Nigeria.
move from watching to acting as well.
Well,
but talking about that, Modele, please hold your thought. I know this is your topic. It's close to your heart. Toby, we have a name in Nigeria that if you call it any time, any day, they will tell you, yes, this person speaks like Martin Luther King. That is Bishop Kuka, right? I'm not sure if I'm getting that right. He's done a great job there, holding a government to account. When things are there, he called. But lately, some people say the man has been quiet. He doesn't seem to be speaking up like before. What do you think is going on? Do you think he's been compromised or what?
Compromised, I'll say no. People like that, they hardly get bought over or silenced.
But he's
for whatever
quiet
reason.
in the face of what's going on right now.
We don't know yet why he's quiet. Might be some personal reasons.
Maybe he's listening
reasons.
for direction.
But I know you've been attacked recently.
Yeah, might be some coarseness or whatever is going on. We have to find out. But Kuka, just like the likes of the South African counterpart,
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela,
He was Desmond Tutu, yeah, not
Desmond
like that,
Tutu.
they don't get silenced easy as far as pressure or compromise or bought over is concerned.
Yeah.
I don't think anything like that comes out from trying to buy them over. But in the general sense, people get bought over, after a while. We've seen it so many times, people speaking out, and once they give them crumbs, they turn around and start to speak in favor of that same thing they have criticized.
But that happens not just in religion, right?
Yeah, I think we need more people like Bishop Kuka to come out, more of our religious leaders to speak. When they don't, people say it's wisdom. They even quote scriptures to back it up and say wisdom is profitable to direct. It's not wisdom to be quiet. Quiet means consent. That means you are consenting to what is going on. Yeah. If you're quiet in the face of adversity, you are not even a good Christian. The Bible condemns you.
But leaders are speaking out now, aren't they? Decrying religious leaders, aren't they speaking out?
In the volume in which Kuka and Martin Luther King and
maybe not to that degree.
Not those degrees. They are supposed to be the forerunners of the fight. Yeah. Because they control a massive followership, a followership that on itself. I'm talking of religious leaders in sects, not even as one religion. In sects, people that own a church is what I mean. General overseers, imams and religious leaders of sects alone control millions and financial, material resources that can make weights. 3 out of the 5 richest pastors in the world are from Nigeria. Wow. If you extend that list to 10, maybe we'll have 5 or 6. That's financial power that can make weights. Why are we not hearing their voice about the Epstein list? Why are we not having their voice about political elections, decisions, about fraud in election results, about electoral reforms, about topics that are prevalent? Yeah. They're silent, totally. So we need to have voices. You won't have Malcolm X. I'm not sure if you studied about him. be silent. Those are, those are religious
But
leaders.
I must say, to balance that narrative, some of them actually spoke out, and they still speak out.
I have
But
a
it's just
question.
that, you see, sometimes the people who are for these corrupt politicians are more than the ones that are against. Because all you need to silence people's opinion is just get someone from their constituency. And the man will tell them, look, now we dey power now, so don't worry, you can't speak ill of this government. I feel things along. I'm not holding brief for them, but I feel like there are pastors who have demonstrated. Bakari is one of them, who has, even though he spoke against a particular government of Jonathan, but he still spoke up against the ones that he was fighting alongside, like the likes of Buhari, the current administration. That's a
definitely
pastor
a voice. That's
who is
definitely a
not
voice
just keeping
who
it to himself,
continue
he's
to
speaking
speak.
up, right? But I think we need more of them. And again, to that point again, you have a question, yeah?
Yes.
Before we move on to something.
I do. I have been waiting
Yeah.
patiently.
Yeah, please go for it.
So
Woman power.
my question is this, in talking about, religious leaders, wading into the politics.
Yeah.
I saw a, story of an influential religious leader in southern Nigeria who had, allegedly spoken to his congregation about his convictions concerning how the elections should go in the last set of elections. And I was told that there was an indictment, where he was said to have been infringing on the rights of Nigerians by doing so, according to that, he was constitutionally wrong,
Yeah.
to do so.
To influence people to go in a particular direction.
Yeah. So when you say like the influence of, religion in politics.
Well, I mean, that clearly talks about where to draw the line. Right?
Yes, that's my question.
Because again, that you're a religious leader does not mean that you are
get on
always
the
right.
podium and say
Abuse
for
your
A
right.
or
Yeah,
B.
that of
That's
course we
not
don't want to
what
encourage
you-
that.
yeah.
And of course, I don't see a lot of them doing that. But we feel like when they don't speak up, they are
But they
already
need to speak.
they need to speak up, especially when things are not going well. All right. So again, talking about this one, I don't want us to really run away from this topic.
Yeah.
The elections are around the corner.
Yes.
Soji, if these religious leaders are not speaking up, if they don't say anything, we're going to end up the same place, right? Because for me, I don't believe they need to go on the street. They need to break down laws and rules and everything to be able to speak their mind. But they can definitely speak to power. They can speak directly using their platform to say, okay, people are suffering. Insecurity is on the, on an increase. Do something about it rather than keep quiet, right? And multiple. So what do you think to that extent they can do to be able to check the government and people in government?
Well,
He laughed.
I laughed because I personally don't believe they will do anything.
And what if they
So
do?
it's so.
What if they come together
I
and do?
don't expect a miracle because we've been on this
They
topic
won't
for
even come
decades.
together.
We've been on this topic for decades. This is the
Are you
cycle.
saying that even within them there's politics, internal politics around
Apart
pastors?
from that, what I'm saying is that, see, the average Nigerian person, man or woman, had been so dehumanized
Wow.
by the system,
That's a very strong word.
consciously
Yeah.
by those in the political leadership system.
Right.
And one of the tools they've used is religion. When religion was, having that big influence, they felt that is one of the tools we need. Do you think it's a joke that Lagos Ibadan Expressway is lined up with religious centers? People taking thousands of hectares of lands to build churches and investing in universities with public money. Do you think it's easy? These are the tools that governments use. That, okay, I give you this, in future you will be able to. So once a government comes, religious leaders patronize them. See, what I'm trying to say is the country
They accept the
is,
donations.
the,
that
the
you mean?
country is at a crisis point. We all know. Any dumb person knows that.
Yeah.
And when it's time for election,
Yeah.
the politicians that you don't see in churches, normally they don't come to churches. You don't see them. You start seeing them in churches. And they are the ones who get to take the front pews during that time of prayer of this, prayer of that. And the religious leaders even exalt them
Right.
in their preachings.
Yeah.
You will never hear, now it's an election circle. We need you to go there. All these things happening in Nigeria, we are not comfortable. You have actually, we are compromised as human beings. You failed us.
Yeah.
We need people who know what they do
But
is
some of
let's
them,
pray.
some of them go
Let's
out.
pray
Some of
for-
them are frontal.
Yeah.
Some of
Well,
them, there's some middle belt religious leaders
those
I
are
know
those
that
are
they're
religious leaders
frontal.
that we really hear about. Those are not. I'm talking about
Their
the
voices
religious
are
leaders
suppressed that
are
have the
so
numbers, right?
prominent in the
Yeah.
Nigerian system.
Yeah.
We know them.
Without calling
We
names.
could mention names, but because of their followers or so,
Yeah.
let's just put it. We know them.
Yeah.
They own universities.
Yeah.
They own vast land,
Institutions. Yeah.
projects. They
Yeah.
own massive wealth. These people don't come out to talk about
Yeah.
anything.
So when you say come
what-
out to
what-
talk, are you talking about like talking using their platforms or like an open letter to the government officials?
Everything combined. When your country is at a crisis point and you are holding revivals where you could boast that almost 1 million people attend that revival, and those millions or thousands go back to their home and start scrounging for what they could eat,
Yeah.
you could see the failure of what you are doing.
Absolutely. So, Modele, again, back to you. Are we praying our prayers? I mean, are we praying our problems away, or we're simply just doing some gymnastics, spiritual gymnastics? Because if you notice that there are a lot of things that are spiritualized in Nigeria.
Yeah.
You and I, we are in the West now. There are a lot of things we don't have to pray for. I
Right.
don't have to pray to
Right.
have constant power. I don't
Yeah.
have to pray for security, even though it's not perfect. But
Right.
that's not supposed to be a prayer topic.
Agreed.
Why so?
So I think, what the challenge is that the energy, the energy for confrontation, the energy for pursuance of change, the energy for personal self-development and the evolution of the individual, in their mind, in the increase of skill and all that over the decades has been lacking because, like you said, a lot of that time has been spent, within the religious circles, and the religious leaders have not necessarily encouraged the people any other way, perhaps because they didn't know any other way. It's like, this is what I can tell you as a religious leader. I spent 8 hours, in prayer, and right after that 8 hours, something happened to me, and this happened and that happened. And so the people listening, idolizing this person, now want to feel that they have to be in that same space using that same amount of time. Meanwhile, this person is a dedicated religious officer. So this is what they do for a living. You don't do that. You're not a religious dedicated officer. So you don't do that for a living. So you do not have, may not always have, the 8 hours or the whatever hours, that he has to. What should be happening to you is, a pursuing of an instruction or a direction or a conviction that you can then now take in any particular direction of growth, skill acquisition, academic pursuits, going out there, to effect change. And when I was talking about being a watcher, this is what I meant, that I have been watching and observing, and I find that there's a couple of things that I'm seeing on the religious scene in Nigeria, which I haven't seen in decades. One is that I'm seeing a coming together.
Yeah, okay.
I'm seeing a coming together of religious leaders more than ever before to have a united front on the need for Nigerians to begin to express change and progress.
Yes.
As an offshoot of their religion.
Yeah,
That's number one.
I know.
The second
second
thing
one,
that
okay.
I have noticed.
Because I have a question for you.
The second thing, that I've noticed, with the leaders is that there's a lot more vulnerability now being expressed of religious leaders, whereas prior to now, they were seen as almost the untouchable gods for whom nothing went wrong.
Oh.
So I'm seeing those two things, happening, and I believe that religion being a great opportunity to effect so much faith in individuals to go out and make the change will live up to its potential eventually. Not doing so right now, but I think we're on the way.
That's what we want, we all desire for. We don't want it to be a tool that will be used against the people.
Yeah.
But okay, now react to this, because we've heard this, we've seen this several times. There's a certain religious group back in Nigeria, but I won't call the name, whose testimonies are so outrageous, they're so inconsistent, where they say, okay, I confronted a lion, and I said this, and I said this, and that lion disappeared.
Do
I
you want me
devoured
to
it.
mention?
Don't mention name. I didn't call you. Off your mic. Off your mic. And they will talk about how armed robbers. I think this is delusional, and we need to be able to call it out for what it is, right? Because that's not helping our people.
But do you know some of these things are AI generated? They actually inflated. Yeah, some of their
you mean
members.
they didn't make those testimonies?
Some of their members actually came out to say outrageous things, but some of those things we are seeing flying about, lion or whatever.
Praise God.
I fell inside a well, and what are those ones are AI generated?
Yeah. So to that extent, do you think it's doing people good? Again, when we probably, let's just say that some of them are AI generated, but where testimonies and some of those statements they make, be it in the mosque, in church, in the shrine, wherever this religion is being practiced, should we have some level of moderation to how we pronounce this thing? I mean, how can we deal with fanaticism to some extent?
Well, you're asking a couple of questions together.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I would say is that with regards to a testimony is a testimonial of someone saying...
Yeah, it should be a personal experience.
Exactly.
But sometimes clearly doesn't sound to be...
It's a personal experience, something that they alleged. Let's use,
allegedly.
Journalism language. They alleged, that this is their truth and this is their reality. Now, the challenge that we have had is where people now build their own reality on that,
based
off of that,
yeah.
Which goes back to what we had said initially about don't leave your brains outside of your worship center. Take them with you and understand that faith is an individual experience. It's a personal experience.
Do you know?
Oh, that's another angle.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
The case of that became a
That's exactly what I'm saying. That even if they are.
It was
the lady has become very entrepreneurial and she's going around making good money.
Yeah.
But even if they are, we cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater.
But this is wrong.
Faith is personal. Faith is personal.
That's exactly the purpose
there
of
is
this
exactly, and so there is the opportunity for, if you're taking your brains with you, ask your questions, but ask your questions in a way that that the system you're asking will give you the answers.
Right.
If you go directly, like on, if you tried in the house of worship to pick up, the mic in the middle of the religious proceeding to ask a question, for instance, you may be seen as disruptive. But you can arrange to get answers to your questions outside of that religious activity at that time. But get your answers.
Just like those who tried to ask a certain man of God that we all know, they were arrested just for asking questions.
Yeah.
But you can ask your questions when it's less disruptive.
Yeah.
I think we will evolve and get there eventually as a
hopefully
people.
So, but we need to get that soon. We need to get there quickly. Totally. I feel like faith and accountability is something that should go together, 1-to-1. I remember growing up, my father used to challenge the pastors on a Sunday service. He raises his hand to say, Pastor, I have a question on that particular portion. Why was it so? And some of those things provoke them. And not too many people are able to do those things. My father did that because, first, very confident man of himself, an ex-military person who is fearless. He doesn't care what position. He will ask you anywhere. But we do not have people who are able to question some of the things that have been there. And I was asking, I said, now that we are seeing that prosperity seems to be working, where do we draw that line to slow it down? Because people believe
What I said, that people should not prosper.
No. What I mean is that it looks like the prosperity is going on one side to the leaders.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Because when you said it was working, I was waiting for you to
Yeah.
It is working. Some of those religious leaders are doing very well. They have private jets, they have fleets of cars, they have security. But they make you pray for security. But they have theirs, with the police guards and everything. Where do you think we need to draw that line to make sure that we don't go foolishly, sheepishly, if you like?
Yeah, there is a movement called Free the Sheeple. Just by that name, you know who I'm talking about.
Please don't
promote that here. I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying what it stands for. I probably don't even follow the man or what he says.
You mean the man that waves his hand?
Yeah, that waves his hand.
With the ring light, right?
With the ring light. But what he tries to say is very simple. People who follow a certain religion have been described as sheep. There is a reason why we did not use goats. There's a herd of goats. There's a a swine of pigs. There are lots of animals that you can group and call them a name. There's a specific reason why it's the sheep, because the sheep are very quiet. They follow all instructions. They are gullible. They will not question the shepherd, and they'll do whatever they've been told to do. And sometimes we will have wolves amongst them wearing those same clothing of sheep, and they will blend together. The shepherd will raise a sheep for 2, 3, 4 years only to slaughter them. We've never looked at it from those perspectives, so we need to start looking at it. It's okay to be a sheep. Not everybody will be a lion. Not everybody
But an
will
informed sheep.
not everybody will be a goat. but to the point I was trying to make, let's be informed as to what it is that we are doing with this religion actually. Is it it's not wrong. Nigerians need to know that it's not wrong to ask questions. All the developments we have today in the world came to be because somebody asked questions. If you ask questions, let's stop mitigating, let's stop criminalizing, demonizing people who ask questions. There's no way we will get to where we are going if we don't ask this question. If it is not working, then let's find how it will work. Because we will not know it's not working. Even Jesus, and I'll have to be specific, we've been using religion. Jesus came to this world to ask questions. He went into the temple to scatter those who were doing the wrong things. Because he asked questions. This thing we're doing, is this how we're supposed to do it? If he didn't ask questions and find that those things are wrong, we will all be still practicing that evil monetary system, which we are presently doing now.
So is the problem the fact that we're asking the questions maybe to people who can't answer the questions? Is that what the problem is? Because if you're asking questions, you can be asking questions of the religious leaders who are studying the material. But are we looking at the material and asking our questions through the material, to get answers from the material, and not necessarily the leaders who are the custodians of the material, because we've all agreed that they are fallible and they're just men. So are we asking our questions of the material, getting answers from there?
Opinion about that material.
Okay.
I'll quickly sum it this way.
The reference book, is it?
The reference books.
Let me use the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically. There's this movie, I think it's in 1996 or in 1998 movie. There's a Washington is the lead in that movie, the Book of Eli.
Book of Eli, yep. I've seen that.
The story is simple. Eli is a blind, deaf guy who, it's an apocalyptic world. The world is dead, everything is ruined. Just
after Trump
can't see
shuts
number
that
of people
bomb.
left in the world, and there's only one copy of the Bible left. So his focus in that film is to take that Bible from where it is to a place where it could be reproduced, so that future, and between the journey, there is a criminal gang in the middle who also wanted that Bible.
Wow.
So it was making the journey, it's an action film, fighting, making the journey. And at one point, the leader of that criminal gang, when his people were saying, this guy is so deft, he's so adept at fighting, he was killing all of us. Why? Just because of a book? Why? They were questioning their leaders. Like, why should we do all this and go to this length because of a book? And the leader responded, that is not a book. It's a weapon.
As long as it is in that book.
Most of those religious leaders are doing. So going back into that book itself, some of our religious leaders are even using that book to actually blackmail people.
Intimidate.
To actually brainwash people.
As a sheep. So as a sheep, if you read the book, aren't you neutralizing the weapon that is used against you?
That is exactly where I'm going.
That's where we need to be.
Yeah. That if you are in church listening to whatever, go to that book itself, find your own divine interpretation to that. Because sometimes these people come on the pulpit, they say things even from that book, but misinterpret it towards their own intent towards their congregation.
That's very, very
as simple as they are using it as a weapon.
That's a very beautiful story there, because again, we need to learn from it. But as we wrap up real quick, Toby, I'll start with you, then we'll come to Soji for our final words. So with what we have all learned about how religion is doing or has treated Nigerians generally, because we know we have the good side, we have the bad side of this religion. What are those lessons that you feel we need to bring to bear as far as fanaticism, as far as practicing our religion here in the West?
3 things. Number 1, spirituality and religion are two different things. Every individual should try to separate them and understand what you're doing. The fact that if you speak with 1,000 tongues and you have no love in your heart, you know what the Bible says about that. So understand what you're doing. Don't just follow blindly. Don't be the sheeple. I'll have to borrow that word again. That's one. Then two, your spiritual leaders are men like you. You know, we all have to come to that consciousness. They are not gods. They're the representatives of God on here, and we accord them that respect that much. But they are humans like you.
Fallible.
You know, they're not the God himself. They're not the ones to do anything that God has not permitted to happen. So if you are following a man to the point where he tells you go and kill another man and you just go, and he says trap a bomb around you and go blast yourself and you just go.
You build an idol.
Or he tells you that, come to my house and sleep, and you're a married woman and you went there without thinking. If you follow a man to those extents, you're to blame. It's not the man's fault.
Absolutely.
It's yours. So separate what these roles, they're just a role. Once he comes out of that stage, it's just a man like you. And three, read the Constitution.
Yes.
That's the third one for me. Everybody should read the Constitution. If you don't read it, then you can't know any of this. This discussion we're having, I'm going to look like the devil or Lucifer. Lucifer
The last time I checked, you're a pastor.
I am one. But that's a discussion for
you're not
another
bringing
day.
the tithe to the household.
They have refused to pay. No. From this table, let's
But
start.
these free moral agents, they can refuse to pay. That's the good thing I can take away. That you have the right to refuse if you don't want to. You actually do have the right, and you're not cursed.
Yeah.
If it doesn't come from your heart.
Right. Your final thoughts.
Like I said, religion has great potential to effect change, positive change, and that is what we all need to now pursue. If you say that you're a religious person, and there are instructions from the book that says that. I think Toby mentioned it at the start. Let's see your faith by your works. Let's see the expression of your works, and your works not within the place of worship. Your place of worship is supposed to be the place where you get energized and find exactly. I love that word. Refer to go out into society and effect change that should outlive you, so that when you reunite with your maker after leaving this world, because that's what a number of the religions agree upon, that there's life after death. And when you do get there, you have given excellent expression to the giftings, the graces, and all that was invested in you within your time window on the earth.
Absolutely. All right, Soji, your
Yeah,
final
for me,
thoughts?
I just want our people to realize that religion is good, faith is good, but these things are expression of our liberal tendencies towards understanding God, not a loop. So when something is putting us in a loop, like, you must do this 30 days fasting for you to have prosperity this year, it's a loop. It does not have to be with everybody. People could worship God, and God could appeal to them in different ways.
That sounds like this
always
scammers tactics. They say
Yeah,
you have to do this to be able to.
I always say, see, my wife has stipulated time for prayer. If I'm alone, I am not that kind of person. I could put my hands in my pocket and be moving away and be doing my own prayers.
Yeah.
That's a different tendency to understanding connections with
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So things do not appeal to people the same way when we respond to the dictates of religion.
Right.
God is liberal. He's a good God. He's not a hard God that we must fixate our lives in a loop. That's what we need to understand.
Absolutely. And I think what we've all agreed, as always, is that religion has the good side, the bad side. And so we have to be mindful of these things. It should be a personal thing. And we should be able to interrogate it in our own very ways. Like,
Get to know your faith.
Toby will say, read the Constitution.
Yeah.
Right. And Modelo will say, yes, but people have lived the experiences, and that's why they get stuck in where we are. But putting a rationale, thinking about, to what extent can I go with my belief and not become a fanatic? I think it's the best place to be, to be able to be good.
And you remember that thing I said about it being scientific?
What's that?
What makes a thing scientific? when you can test something,
Yeah.
you can observe something, and you can test it, and you can sample it out. I think people should
Has
be
been
open to do that.
experimented,
Yes,
right?
Yeah,
because
yeah,
when you have
absolutely.
your answers,
Yeah.
you arrive at conviction.
Yeah.
And when you arrive at
Absolutely.
conviction, no man taketh it away from you.
This is very powerful. In fact, that's why I like being on this table and seeing how you guys haggle this out. Thank you so much for your thought, Toby, Soji, and the
you.
powerful Modele on
Anytime.
this
Thank
one.
you.
All right, viewers. So in the end, faith has always been a powerful force in Nigeria, the Nigerian society. It inspires hope, it shapes our identity, and guides millions of lives. But the real question remains, how can faith move beyond inspiration to become the force for a national transformation? Perhaps the future of Nigeria lies not only in what we believe, but in how those beliefs shape our action. If you
Right
haven't
on.
already, make sure to subscribe here, because this is the only platform where we bring you reflections and things going on back in Nigeria. And it cannot be anywhere else except Naija Now. See you on the next one.